Best team in the Big Ten, one of the 4 best in college football. Well, that's up to the committee to decide on Sunday, but I say yes. Ohio State 22, Northwestern 10 in the Big Ten championship game. The Buckeyes trailed 10-3. They scored the final 19 points in the game. They were a 20-point favorite. So the optics for a lot of people will be that Ohio State struggled in the passing game. The offense struggled to score points, that they didn't pass the eye test against a Northwestern team that is notoriously undermanned and not as talented as the elite teams in college football. But this is a Northwestern team that has performed all season and has built a track record under Pat Fitzgerald to be a top 10 to 15 team this season in college football. I would argue that with anyone. All right, pluses and minuses for the Buckeyes on this one. Let's start with the minuses. Basically, the passing offense. The passing offense and the inability for Ryan Day to see what he had right in front of him, meaning an offensive line that was dominating, and Trey Sermon. So Justin Fields struggled again. We mentioned after the Indiana game that was clearly his worst day as a Buckeye, but he still threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and completed over 60% of his passes. This, against Northwestern, was by far the worst day Justin Fields has had on a football field, probably anywhere. He went 12 for 27 for 114 yards and 2 interceptions. Was this all his fault? No. I received a few texts before the game confirming Chris Olave would not be playing. I reasoned that the wide receiver core is Ohio State's deepest and most talented unit of any on the offense or the defense, that they could suffer the loss there. It wouldn't be a huge deal. Chris Olave is an exceptional player, and he would be missed. But if Ohio State was going to take a loss to any unit on the field, offense or defense, that would be the unit to take it. I might have been a little bit wrong there. I still agree with that assessment, but the chemistry between Fields and Olave is unlike the chemistry and connection between Fields and any of the other receivers. Olave has the experience. He's just a gamer. He knows the nuances of reading the coverages, and he and Fields are on the same page. Fields threw 1 interception, not his fault, but he and the receiver were not on the same page. Jamison Williams took the out and up, and Fields ran the play and threw the out, and it was intercepted by Northwestern. So Justin Fields did have a bad day, but let's understand that the blitz packages by Mike Hankwitz, the 51-year-old coach, 51 years of experience going back to 1970, and finishing out a stellar career at Northwestern as defensive coordinator, the blitz packages that he dialed up in this one were difficult. They overwhelmed the Ohio State offensive line a number of times, more than a number of times, most of the time. So Justin Fields was under heavy pressure most of the day. He didn't make good decisions. He didn't have his best and number one receiver, his most reliable receiver, and therefore his performance could be justified to a certain extent. And also understand that, as reported by Fox Sports, Justin Fields said after the game that he possibly sprained his thumb. And that stems from a previous injury. Not good news for the Buckeyes heading into a college football playoff situation, of course. That was the main negative in this game. And then also that Ryan Day was too stubborn. And I think this is common of offensive-minded coaches, offensive coordinators, and head coaches who have built their resume on the offensive side of the ball. Offense is most creative in a passing game. Therefore, offensive coordinators have elevated themselves to a certain level because of what they can do in the passing game more than the running game. They love to pass. They love to throw it. And even when the run game works, as it did time after time after time for Ohio State, specifically when they were down in this game, starting the second half, first 2 plays for the Buckeyes, 2 Trey Sermon runs, 25 yards. 2 carries for 25 yards. What did they do on the third play? They threw it, and they were picked off. Stay with the run game. Power the run game. Beat up the Northwestern defense. They finally got to that That's when they ran away with the victory. At halftime, Trey Sermon and Master Teague had a combined 12 carries for 173 yards at 13 yards per pop, and Ohio State had 0 touchdowns and only 6 points. Run the football. And when Ohio State finally got to the run game in the second half, they not only ran it well, they ran it to historic measures. Trey Sermon, 331 yards on 29 carries, breaking Eddie George's 25-year-old Ohio State record for rushing in a game. George ran for 314 against Illinois in 1995. Congratulations to Trey Sermon, the best player on the field wearing scarlet and gray, against the Northwestern defense that came into the game at 21st, ranked in the country against the run, giving up just 121 yards per game. Anytime a back runs for 300 yards, of course, credit the offensive line as well. Ohio State's run game and offensive line blocking in the run game was just as impressive as the issues that they had pass protecting against Justin Fields and the Northwestern pass rush in the blitz package in particular. Also, let's look at the Ohio State defense. Were there issues? Yeah, there were some issues, but they gave up 10 points. The issues were that they were hurt in the Wildcat package by Cam Porter occasionally. They weren't ripped to shreds, no huge gainers, but Porter was able to consistently gain yardage in the Wildcat, and Ohio State seemed to be a bit confused, despite Porter's inability to be able to throw the ball. So it's not even though they had the second option of throwing the football, and that made it difficult for Ohio State to cover the Wildcat. It was a run-heavy Wildcat, and that's what it is. Peyton Ramsey got loose a few times for big yardage against the Ohio State defense when he broke contain. And also he had the opportunity a few times in some critical third down situations to break contain and run for the first down, and he chose to throw the ball, and that bailed out the Buckeye defense. So they could be hurt during this college football playoff season by the likes of Trevor Lawrence and what we saw last year in the college football playoff against Clemson. Justin Hilliard had a monster game for the Buckeyes. 9 tackles, the interception in the end zone, which was key, a linebacker going back in coverage and picking off a ball that would have put Northwestern up by 2 scores at that point, and he had numerous quarterback pressures as well. The defensive tackle tandem of Tommy Togiai and Haskell Garrett were exceptional. Garrett had 2 tackles for loss as well. So that's the analysis on both sides of the ball for the Buckeyes. They had to go with a backup punter in Hoover with Drew Chrisman out. He performed exceptionally well. And Blake Habeel had 3 out of 4 on the field goals. He missed the chip shot, but he connected from some of the longer field goals there. So the Buckeyes do win it 22-10. All right. Ohio State came into this game number 4 in the country. Now that's not a number 4 that is ranked by anybody else outside the College Football Playoff Committee. So they have already taken into account that Ohio State's played less games than the other teams, and they still said this is the 4th ranked team in the country. Ohio State, in my eyes, cannot miss the playoffs. If they do, if the committee would drop them and elevate, let's say, Oklahoma or Texas A&M, then it's completely contradictory to what the playoff committee has told us to date. They have taken the lack of games into account because Ohio State, if anything, is catching up in the number of games that they're playing, because before this week, Texas A&M had played 9 and Ohio State 5, or it was, let's say, 8-5. Now it's 9-6, and the same comparison to Oklahoma. So if anything, a team that's ranked 4th in the country that wins a conference championship game against the team that they consider to be the 14th best team in the country should maintain its spot. Obviously, you don't have to be a genius over the number 5 team in the country that won by 18 points over a team that's 3-6, now 3-7 after the loss in Tennessee. And then Oklahoma's all the way back at number 10 with 2 losses. You cannot elevate a team with 2 losses that barely has more games played, 10-7, than the team in question, Ohio State. My apologies, 10-6. Oklahoma with an 8-2 record. Ohio State, of course, at 6-0. My thoughts on the Buckeyes' performance in the Big Ten championship game. Was it perfect? Was it stellar? Was it scintillating? No. Was it effective? Yes. Does it give Buckeye fans hope and optimism in the college football playoff? I'm thinking for most, no, because they want to see big numbers in the passing game. I'm not that concerned with that as long as Justin Fields is healthy and the thumb is fine and Chris Olave can come back and play in the playoff. I'm encouraged by the running game, and I think Buckeye fans should be encouraged by the red zone defense and the defensive performance overall. Ohio State came into this weekend at number 4. They should maintain that spot, if not rise a spot, if Notre Dame continues to get drubbed by Clemson. Your thoughts down in the comments section below, please. And, of course, smash that like button. Subscribe to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live, which is every day, right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.